welcome back to another video on my channel. Now, I'm not sure if you guys can notice this, but my face is still quite swollen, from getting my wisdom teeth out, and my teeth are still pretty sore. So I decided to do a little bit of a different styled video today to make sure that I still got something up for you guys. But basically all week I've just been chilling and thinking about my favorite things that I used to do when I was younger around the Halloween season. And I started to think about like things that you do in school when you're younger to celebrate Halloween. And something that popped into my head was when the teacher would read to you or tell you scary stories. Now, a lot of the scary stories that I heard actually came from the book Scary Stories, which was recently turned into a movie. But I thought today I would share with you guys some of my favorite scary stories that I've come across over on the internet over the past few years. So I think one of them is a internet urban legend, one of them is a creepypasta, and one of them is an allegedly true story from Reddit. Now, I'm not going to be reading them in that order, and I'm not going to be reading them directly, but I will be telling you these stories. So I hope with that you guys enjoy this video, and let's get right into it. The story took place in June 1972 in Cedars-Sinai Hospital, when a woman appeared in a hospital in nothing but a white blood-covered gown. Now, this in itself wasn't too alarming to the people who were within the hospital, because people often got hurt nearby and came to the closest hospital for medical attention. But there were two things about this woman that caused people to vomit and flee in fear after seeing her. One of these was that the woman appeared as if she was completely emotionless. She looked like that of a mannequin. She had no expression, and her face was completely void of any kind of eyebrows or anything like that, and she had makeup smeared all over her face. And the second thing that really alarmed people about this woman was that she had a kitten clenched within her jaw. It said that the kitten was clenched so tightly in this woman's jaw that you couldn't see any of her teeth, and the blood was just dripping from this kitten down onto her dress. Now, after she walked into the hospital, she allegedly grabbed the kitten, ripped it from her mouth, and threw it on the floor before completely collapsing. From the moment she'd entered the hospital to the moment when she was brought into a hospital room and treated and prepared for sedation, she appeared to be completely calm and emotionless. But the doctors did think that it was best to restrain her because they didn't know where she was before this or what had happened, and she did not put up a fight for this. She let them restrain her, and she again just remained completely emotionless and didn't really do anything while the doctors prepared her for sedation and did restrain her. Now, while she was sitting in the hospital bed, a lot of the doctors and nurses that were coming in the room found it very difficult to look at her for more than a few seconds because of how gruesome she did appear. After she was brought into the hospital, when she was put into the hospital room and everything like that, the doctors and medical professionals who were on call that night tried to talk to her and figure out who she was, where she came from, and what had happened, but they got absolutely no response from this strange woman. It was until the staff members tried to sedate her. That is when two members had to actually come in and hold her down, as her body rose up from the bed as she fought back with extreme force when they were trying to do this. But during this whole entire endeavor, her face remained absolutely expressionless. When she turned towards the male doctor who was trying to hold her down and help them to sedate her, and she did something very, very unsettling. On that same unexpressionless face that she had all night that appeared like a mannequin, she turned to him and smiled. Did this, the female doctor who was on her other side let go and screamed in absolute shock, because inside this mannequin woman's mouth was not your normal average human's teeth. They were very long and sharp and spiky, and it seemed impossible that she would have been able to close her mouth around them. That is when the male doctor got extremely scared and just stared back at her and said to her, "What are you?" She then moved back a little bit, tilted her head to the side, and just stared at him while still smiling. At this point, security of the hospital had been alerted about what was going on. They already knew that there was this strange woman being taken care of within the hospital, so they were already on high alert, so they were coming down the hallway quite quickly at this time. As security could be heard coming down the hallway towards the room, this is when that horrifying woman leaned forward, grabbed the male doctor, and began to viciously bite at his neck, ripping out his jugular and letting him fall to the floor as he choked on his own blood. She got up and leaned closer to the male doctor as the life began to fade from his eyes, and that is when she said to him in a very slow and deep whisper, "I am God." The male doctor's last alive sighting was of this woman getting out of the bed and walking towards the hospital room door to greet the 2 security guards. She then feasted on the 2 of them, but the female doctor who actually took care of this woman is said to still be alive today, and she named this woman the expressionless. But nobody has ever seen this woman since. Now guys, that one was kind of like an internet urban legend. And I know it's a little bit hokey, but I did come across it, I think, in 2012 on a scary Twitter feed. Like, it was like an unsolved Twitter. And when I did come across it, I wasn't sure if it was real or not, because this Twitter actually posted true crime stories. So when I first came across it, it had me really shaken, and not only because the story itself is a little bit unsettling, but because of the photo that goes along with this story. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen it. It's been on the screen throughout this video and whatever, but this picture is absolutely horrifying. Now, yeah, I don't know, I just thought that one was really scary, and I wanted to share it with you guys. Even though it is quite a popular story on the internet, I still wanted to bring it up in this video. So I hope that you guys enjoyed that story, and let's get on with the next one. Next story, I'm going to be kind of like narrating to you guys as if I am that person. I'm not going to be reading directly from my phone, just because I think that's kind of distracting when people do that in a video. So I'm going to just kind of be roughly narrating it to you guys so that you get the gist of the story, but I'm not going to be looking at my phone throughout the entire video. The person who wrote this story said that they had lived in a very popular city in the US for a total of 5 years. Now, at this time they had a roommate, but the roommate that they were living with was in fact not a night person. And the person who was telling this story was a night person. They loved to stay up all night, they couldn't sleep, so they used to like to go for very long walks and just think while they walked throughout the night. Now, he said that he used to joke with his roommate because he had never had a problem while walking at night ever, saying that even the drug dealers in the city where they lived were polite, because he had just never come across anything that was alarming or scary at all. But that would all change in the span of 5 minutes one evening. It was Wednesday night, but somewhere between 2 and 3 in the morning, so it was very late. And this person said that even for a weeknight, it just seemed that there was absolutely nobody out. There was very few cars and pretty much nobody on foot. He hadn't really seen anybody in quite a while. Now, he was actually crossing through a couple streets at this time to loop back to his apartment, and that is when he saw a very strange and tall man. He said that this very strange and tall man was moving very erratically, almost as if he was dance walking straight towards the person who wrote this story. This person said that he assumed that because this person was dance walking, that he thought that maybe this person was drunk, and he actually just kind of like slowed his walking down to give this person more space in between them so that he could continue his dance walking before this guy would approach. But as the person got closer, that is when he noticed that this person was very strange. He, again, like I said, was a very tall and lanky man wearing a very old suit. And when his face came into view of the writer, that is when he noticed that he had large, wide, and wild-looking eyes and had a huge cartoon-like smile on his face and was looking up directly towards the sky. Just like anybody would be, the narrator of this story was completely taken back by this man, and so he decided to cross the street to kind of keep distance between him and this strange dancing guy. But once he crossed the street, that is when he took his eyes off of the guy and then looked back at him to notice that he was now completely parallel to this strange dancing man with one foot in the street, and he was completely facing the writer, but he was actually still smiling and looking up at the sky. The writer was completely terrified at this point, not sure what exactly was going on, so he wouldn't dare take his eyes off this strange man. And he said the entire time while he was staring at this strange dancing man, the man did not move, not even a little bit, almost like he was a statue. The narrator had put about a block between him and the strange man. He turned around just for a minute to kind of look at the sidewalk ahead of him. The sidewalk ahead of him was completely empty, and so unnerved, he turned around to look back at the strange man. But that is when he noticed that the man was completely gone. Now, at first, after noticing that the man was gone, he felt a little bit better. Maybe the man had turned around and walked somewhere else. Maybe he had gone into one of the buildings, but that is when he noticed that the man had actually crossed the street was now on the same side of the street as him and was slightly crouched down as if he was hiding. Now the narrator couldn't see his face directly, so he couldn't tell which direction this man was facing, but he was quite sure that this strange dancing man was looking directly at him. Of course, like anybody would be, this person was just absolutely shocked because this dancing man moved so quickly that the narrator didn't even see him. But that is when he just stood there staring at this man, and all of a sudden the man got up and started to take very large and exaggerated steps towards this guy. Now he said that this dancing man was taking such large and exaggerated steps that he almost appeared cartoonish. He was also moving with extreme speed for the way that he was walking. It just seemed like he was moving excessively quick. Like the man was just moving so unbelievably fast that the person who wrote this couldn't think of what to do. They just completely froze up. They didn't get out their cell phone, they didn't get pepper spray, they just completely froze and stood there while this strange smiling dancing man creeped closer and closer towards him. But that is when this smiling man became about a car length away from the writer of this story, and that is when he stopped walking. But he was still smiling completely, that big creepy cartoon smile, and staring up at the sky. That is when the person who wrote this story wanted to ask, "What do you want?" But something that came out of his mouth because he was so scared was just, "What?" And he said that this made him even more scared because obviously now the smiling man knew that he was horrified, but this didn't seem to faze him at all. The man still just stayed there completely still, smiling and staring up at the sky. Then for the narrator's relief, all of a sudden this man, just like that, turned around and started dance walking away. Now, the person who was experiencing all of this waited until he said that the man was so far away that he was almost out of sight, and then he was going to, I guess, turn around and start walking away. But that is when he noticed that this man was no longer dancing away from him. He was actually full on sprinting towards him. That is when the person who shared this story with us turned around and started to run as well. This person luckily ran until they were on a much more lit up road where there was actually a couple cars, and even though he kept looking behind him multiple times over his shoulder, nervous that the smiling man would appear again, luckily for him, he just seemed like he vanished. He wasn't there anymore and he never appeared again. The narrator who wrote us this story said that he lived in that same city for 6 more months after this incident, but following that incident, he never ever went for a late night walk ever again. He said that there was just something so scary about this man's smile and the way that he moved. He didn't appear as if he was drunk, he didn't appear as if he was on drugs. He just appeared as if he was some utterly insane person that was coming for our narrator, which is just absolutely horrifying. That story I came across on Reddit a couple years ago, and I just thought it was so interesting and it gave me chills, so that is why I wanted to share that one with you guys. The next story that I'm going to be sharing is also off of Reddit, and the next one is allegedly true. The other two are just kind of like internet urban legends. There's no way to verify if they are true or not, but the next one that I'm about to share with you guys is said to be true, so I'm going to be reading it directly from my phone. Before I start, here's a bit of context to my story. My husband and I live in a small 2-floor house with 2 main entrances, one along the front and the other on the side of the house, which opens up into the laundry room. When we're too busy or it's too late to walk our dog, we hook his collar onto a long line that attaches to one of the pipes on the corner of our house so he can use the bathroom. He used to do this from the door in our laundry room, but we'd noticed the large steps from the door to the ground had been taking a toll on his hips. As a result, we started letting him out through the front door instead, since the porch is much closer to the ground. This particular night, I was home alone with my dog, and it was around midnight when I decided to let him outside, one last time before going to bed. I hook him up to his line, close the door and lock it before heading into the kitchen to put away the dishes. This was pretty routine. Even if he used the bathroom quickly, he liked to walk around along the front and side of the house for a few minutes before coming back inside. As I'm putting away the dishes, I hear a scratch on the door. That is how my dog signals that he wants to come inside, so I head over to let him back in. Since I've watched way too many scary movies, I always look through the door's peephole before opening the door. Out of habit, I look to check that my dog is out the front of the door. Instead, this time I seen a man staring very intently at the door handle. I freeze with my hand on the door handle. I don't know how much time went by, but then I heard another scratch, this one louder than the last. This kind of wakes me up from my initial shock and I run to grab my cell phone. I call my husband to tell him what's happening. He was very confused and I probably wasn't explaining the situation very well, but he says that he's heading home. This is when I realize that my dog is still outside with this person. I head back to the front door trying to make as little noise as possible to check whether the stranger is still there. Just like before, he's standing there, head bowed, looking at the doorknob. I tiptoe over to the laundry room and slowly open the door as quietly as possible. I can't see my dog anywhere and the side of my house is covered in gravel. I knew I couldn't step outside without making a lot of noise. With my heart still pounding in my chest, I go to the front door to keep an eye on the stranger and to get a better look at him. I considered calling the police, but I didn't feel they would take me very seriously, since all this man was doing was standing in the front of my house. I tried taking a picture of him with my cell phone, but my camera was only able to take a picture of the peephole and not the image behind the glass. All of a sudden, the man looks up directly at me. I swear he knew I was there. He glares at me and then opens his mouth to show his taunting, malicious grin. He stood there that way for a few seconds. With that, he turned around and started to walk down the street. I stayed in the same place, almost expecting him to rush back and start pounding on the door. Luckily, my husband got back after a few minutes. Long story short, he convinced me to call the police and we went out looking for our dog. It turns out that this man had cut the end of the line connecting to the pipe. Our dog decided that this was a good time for him to go exploring our neighbor's backyard, which was where we found him. It has been 3 years since this has happened and we've since moved to a new house, for unrelated reasons. And the police weren't able to come up with any suspects. Ever since then, we take our dog on very long walks before the sun goes down. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that last story just absolutely horrified me when I read it. Maybe because I have dogs and I let them out, and that would just be so scary. I don't even look when I hear my dog scratching on the door. I just open it to let them in. So after reading this story, I definitely started to look out the window after hearing that. It's just so horrifying. But guys, that brings us to the end of today's video. I just quickly want to say that I did not write any of these stories that I told you. I have no relation to any of the people who wrote these stories, and they will all be linked in the description box below. I also just wanted to say that I know that this is a very, very, very different type of video than my usual videos, but I did just want to get something creepy and Halloween themed up for you guys because I love this month and I'm pretty sure so many of you guys love this month just as much, so I just wanted to make sure to get something up even though I wasn't feeling too great and I have just been kind of chilling. But again, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!